Screen share.
We'd like to welcome you to BlackUSA.News. We're here with the one and only Kisha Brown. Hi, Kisha. How are you?
Hi, Donnie. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve. Now, I'm not a lawyer. Let's just clarify that.
What? You're not? Are you sure? Because you talk like you one sometimes. You know, you like to break it down now. So I don't know.
I'm not a lawyer.
Okay. If you say so.
But you're the host, and we're here to get you started on your maiden voyage.
All right. Well, let's jump right on in.
Come on with it.
Yeah, Donnie, I'm so appreciative of you having me on the news, having me a part of the program. I want to share with all of your listeners about Justis Connection and being not only just me being a lawyer, but more importantly, connecting to lawyers, right? And so I'm an entrepreneur. I've built this database, this business all around lawyers and connecting lawyers to the people. Good evening, Rico. Mr. Crawley, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you for the blessings. So, starting about over 2 years ago, well, let me start from the beginning. I feel like from the minute I started law school, right? I went to law school, started in 2004. So I've been a barred attorney for over 15 years. And I felt like people were always asking for legal referrals. Hey, Kisha, do you know somebody who does criminal law? Do you know somebody who does family law? Do you know somebody who does bankruptcy? And I would go through my database. I'd look in my text. I'd text people. I'd email them. I'd call them. Sometimes it would take me hours. Sometimes it would take me days to make those connections. And I felt like we as Black lawyers were not doing right by our folks. We were not doing right by our community.
Well, I thought you had like Monumental Bar Association.
Say it again.
I thought there is the Monumental Bar Association to help bring us together.
Well, the Monumental Bar Association, right, is one of the oldest Black bar associations, if not the oldest Black bar association in the state of Maryland, but one of the oldest around the country. And the Black Bar Association is wonderful. It's a way for Black lawyers to come together, to network, to collaborate, to work on projects, to discuss, but it's not geared towards those who practice law and are looking to build their business and their practice in their own firms, right? And so I'm focused on those lawyers in particular who have their own firms or they work at a firm, meaning they practice law, right? For connecting with the public. They take on clients, they do all types of things, everything from taxes to cybersecurity to mergers and acquisitions to writing and drafting wills and figuring out disputes, right? Lawyers do the whole work. Anything you can imagine, lawyers do it. And so there was this gap between how do you find a lawyer? Donnie, but obviously right now you would go to Justis Connection without a doubt, but beforehand, how would you find a lawyer? Now I know you know lawyers, is that correct?
Absolutely.
That's right. You know lawyers. So in your network, in your circle, you are connected to people who are lawyers.
It's imperative. I'm a Black man in America.
But not everybody has that in their circle, right? Not everybody knows lawyers.
It doesn't cost you
to know a lawyer. Yeah, just because
a lot of us think a lawyer is out of our reach.
Exactly. Yeah. It's true.
That it costs a lot of money. And one thing I share with a lot of people is how you can get a payment plan with a lawyer, depending on the lawyer. But I know lawyers to do payment plans.
This is true. There are all different types of ways that you can pay for lawyers, right? Miss Kane, good evening to you. Thank you for joining this evening. The point I guess I want to make is that not everybody is connected to lawyers. You know lawyers, you got some folks, you just called one on the phone and said, brother, I need you, right? Not everybody can do that. And what I want to do is make that gap smaller. I want people to have greater access to lawyers and not just one or two. I want no matter what it is that you're looking for, there's a Black lawyer that does that. Right? Black lawyers do everything. I'm gonna keep saying that, right? Because sometimes we forget all the different areas, or we don't even know, quite frankly, all the different areas that people practice. And so Black lawyers do it all.
I want you to keep saying it because there is this stereotype in the Black community that a Black lawyer cannot suffice, that you need a Jewish lawyer.
It's true.
So please keep saying it.
Yeah, yeah. And as I was, when I was building Justis Connection, and I did my research on it. I didn't just say I'm going to put this together. I spoke to over 100 Black lawyers in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and talked about what were their experiences as a Black lawyer trying to connect with clients and build their firm and practice law. And many of them spoke about that, right? That they would often find that that Black people would say, I need to get me a good Jewish lawyer or a good white lawyer, right, in order to win my case. And I think, it's rooted in a whole lot of stuff. We got some stuff in our community that is deeply ingrained. Oh boy, we done been joined by J. Wendell Gordon. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Good. You actually crossed my mind earlier today. It's been quite some time. Yeah. But that's for another day. But we were in the middle of talking about sort of the importance and the value of a Black lawyer, right? And the fact that oftentimes people will say, hey, I need to get me a good white lawyer. And I think that, we've got a lot of stuff that we've got to unpackage, right? Peel back that onion of what our stuff comes from, right? So whether it's coming from the fact that we've all in this country as Black people, it's always been forced upon us from the beginning, right? That white is right and Black get back. And that goes through and permeates everything. We think that oftentimes only white people know judges and are connected, when in fact we live in a state where there are Black judges and Black lawyers are just as, if not more, connected in the legal world. And we think that white lawyers, they can go to the best schools. Guess what? Black lawyers go to the best schools too. Oh, we think that white people, they work their butts off. Guess what? Ain't nobody working harder than a Black man or a Black woman on behalf of a Black person, right? So there's a lot of things that we still have to uncover, that we have to peel back, and that we have to challenge, right? And look at ourselves as to why we believe what we believe and how that is separating us from connecting with not only excellent lawyers, Black lawyers, but people, quite frankly, who are going to work harder for you than anyone else. So you jumped in, Jay Wendell. I'll give you an opportunity if you wanted to share any thoughts that you had on where that notion comes from in our community about you need a good white lawyer or a good Jewish lawyer in order to beat the case.
Well, I've seen things change. When I first started practicing law, I would hear that more frequently than I certainly do today. People understand the value and the worth of the Black lawyer. In fact, I have to thank Johnny Cochran. Look who's calling me right now. I have to thank Johnny Cochran. I'm supposed to take this phone call. I have to thank Johnny Cochran for his excellence back in 1995 with the O.J. Simpson case. Hey, Kavette, how you doing? And ever since then, and others who came up with him, Carl Douglas and John Burris out of Los Angeles, and the list goes on and on. I can go on and on. Today, people understand the value of the Black lawyer. They've seen us. They call us when things go wrong, and quite frankly, they know us because we are the community superheroes. You know what I mean? We are the ones who, if we're not there, the question becomes, where are they? Where is Jay Wendell? Where is Warren Brown? Where is Billy Murphy? Where is, even a Kenny Ravenel? Where are these people when these things are going on? They're not looking for Rubenstein or Shabosky or whoever you can think of. So I do appreciate that things are changing today. And people are recognizing the worth of the Black lawyer. No one is going to work for you because we have that kindred, the way that we do, because we have that kindred spirit. We are familiar with the struggle. We live the struggle. Even as Black attorneys, we live the struggle. And now that we have, the know-how to be able to get in there and fight, we fight with our ancestors. We fight understanding that there's thousands and thousands of them behind us. And we never lose sight of that. And it's never, it's never a time where you feel like you're going to be outmatched, because you've been doing this long enough and your skills are good enough that most times, a lot of times, they're better than those of your counterparts. So, given an equal playing field, man, you can really, you can really take over. You can really put on the J. Wendell Gordon show or the Warren Brown show and upstage everybody in courtroom except the judge. You know what I mean? It works that way a lot of times.
I hear you. There are dynamic Black lawyers all around who practice in every area. So definitely we want to hear folks' comments who are tuned in, or any questions that you might have. I was on the wrong screen. All right, there we go. Now I can see some of the comments coming through. Definitely put in your comments. Let us know any questions you might have. So today's episode was really like an intro, right? And sort of looking at that beginning stage before you're ready to hire an attorney, before you're having that first interview, sort of what to consider when thinking about hiring an attorney and why, right? You might need to hire an attorney. Oftentimes people kind of don't get past that first step for a lot of things. It's one thing if you're facing criminal charges and you're like, back is against the wall, I need somebody, right? And there's a court date pressing. It's another when there are problems and challenges and crises that come up in our lives, and we oftentimes don't know how we're going to deal with them. Or where we can turn for assistance. And that's where, quite frankly, connecting with a lawyer, a Black lawyer, can be of great assistance, right? At every step of the way. And so being able to really look at early on, when should I even consider hiring a lawyer? Right. So one aspect I would throw out there is if it's going to cost you more to do it yourself, right? Time is money and money is time. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to hire a lawyer. But if it's going to cost you more to do it yourself, meaning your time, right? That you have to take away from work, time you have to take away from your family, time you have to take away from your business, time that you're going to have to take away to learn something new in order to navigate and file and get the paperwork and make copies and mail in and file, all of those things, all of that takes time, right? And if it's not your area of expertise, you have to make a personal assessment around, is this worth my time to do? Or is it better off for me to just hire somebody to handle this, right? So can you think of, do you have an example, Jay, when you would recommend, for example, a type of case when somebody should consider hiring a lawyer as opposed to doing it yourself, that DIY situation?
Almost any case that doesn't involve Judge Judy. I mean, you can do the Judge Judy cases by yourself. You can go down to small claims court and file your case against somebody for $5,000, but anything $5,000 and above, I think you need a lawyer. If you're facing some type of situation where you could actually lose your liberty or lose your property, you definitely need a lawyer. So, and that's all across the board. I'm not just saying it because I am a lawyer, but I've been around the courtroom enough to see, bad things happen to good people because they weren't properly prepared to do battle. And, a lot of injustice can occur when the judge determines that, you don't have a lawyer, so you're not taking this seriously, and don't expect the judge to be overly solicitous towards, you because you're litigating pro se. If the defense or the plaintiff, depending on what side you are on, determined that this matter was serious enough that I need to be properly represented, and you determine that you're just going to, trick your way through it, then, the outcomes may not be as you expected. And you might think you have a slam dunk case, but you come in there, you get a crafty lawyer on the other side of the trial table, you're going to be, you're going to be in a battle royale, and you might end up in a bloodbath. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you need to have a lawyer. There's no substitute for good representation. My slogan used to say, effective legal representation doesn't cost, it pays. And in fact, I still say that. Effective legal representation doesn't cost, it pays. And what that means is that you need to invest in your cause, take stake in it, and have someone beside you who's really going to fight for you, so that you can do the things that you should be, focused on. That is just your testimony or presenting your documents, and let your lawyer just do this thing for you. It's like you're going to Ghana or Kenya, not knowing how to speak the language, and not having an interpreter. Your lawyer is your interpreter. Your lawyer speaks the language. If you're going into a foreign land and you don't know how to speak the language, imagine how much in the wilderness you would feel.
Yeah.
The court feel like a wilderness. You don't have a translator, or if you don't speak the language. So I don't know how better to express it, that lawyers are essential. Everyone should have a family lawyer, and not someone. When I say family lawyer, I'm not talking about someone who does family law, just someone who they can call on the phone when they have a problem. Like back in the day, people had, I've called my lawyer, get my lawyer on the phone. Everybody had a lawyer. Now people don't even know lawyers. You know what I mean? So we need to get back to the days where, if you got a problem, call Jay Wendell, call Kisha Brown. You know what I mean? And it's great to see you too, Kisha. Call Kisha Brown and get you a lawyer, get connected.
That's right. Get connected. And that's where, so I don't even know if you know, Jay, but I founded Justis Connection. And so we talk about get connected with Justis Connection, right? And the whole purpose, right, is to provide that bridge to Black lawyers. Many folks are blessed to know you and others, and you've got lawyers calling you right now, right? And lawyers know lawyers, but for most people, they don't know lawyers. They don't have one on speed dial. They look up, they see the billboards, right? They hear the jingle on 92Q, and they think, hey, these people are talking to us, when in fact, those people are not from our community. Right? They advertise specifically to our community. They're not of our community. They don't give to our community. They don't support our community. They don't invest in our community, and they don't hire from our community. Yet they advertise to us, right? And so at Justis Connection, it's a cadre, it's a network of Black lawyers. It's your one-stop shop to be able to connect to Black lawyers. And so currently I have over 650 Black lawyers who practice in the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia. And it's free for the public to use, right? And so we look at how do we take technology to make that matchmaking process more efficient and effective, and do that in a way that provides the public an excellent service and provides Black lawyers an excellent pathway to new clients, right? And so we've got to be more intentional, right, about how we connect. And how we not only support each other, but make sure that it's easily a win-win. Black lawyers want to serve their community, right? You heard Jay Wendell talk about how passionate that Black lawyers fight for their clients. And Black lawyers want to be connected. They want to engage. They want to be the defenders and the superheroes, right, for the Black community. Just as much as Black people, quite frankly, when our back is up against the wall and we're looking for help, not knowing where to go. Right, and that Black lawyers are there. I saw a question that come through talking about considering that we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Like lawyers, past lawyers like Charles Hamilton, Houston. What is your obligation to future lawyers? Excellent question. What is our obligation to future lawyers? And I'm sorry, go ahead.
To make more of them, to train them up, because they're not going to last forever. You know what I mean? I've been doing this for 26 years. And, it was always important for me to give back, to reach back, and to bring up with me a young lawyer. I have one in my office, well, a young law student currently.
Excellent. Law student, okay.
What concerns me is the numbers are going down, especially for African-American men. We don't see them coming through the ranks anymore. And
oh my gosh, it's horrible.
University of Baltimore, I was just, expressing my disappointment to them that we don't have the numbers of Black men lawyers, and everything comes from the law pretty much. We are a country of laws, a nation of laws, and so we need to have the appropriate representation at the table when policies are changing, when laws need to be enacted, and laws need to be enforced or applied. We need to be there, and we need to for our people, to be honest with you, because we catch it a lot of times.
Right. We're the first to catch it.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. Right.
The hate crime law come out, and you think so go after the Ku Klux Klan, and the first person they apply it to is an African American who is something too, who maybe robbed a white person or something. You know what I mean? So we have to be there at all stages.
I too am really key, always having Black law students, right, as interns, and every semester and every summer, always have had them in every position that I've ever had, always had interns, and continue to do so with Justis Connection, every semester and every summer, having Black law interns and giving them experience, right, beyond just your giving them experience that exposes them to the real world of the law, right? That exposes them to Black lawyers and the Black lawyer network, because that's key in order to navigate this legal industry. Most folks don't even know that the legal industry is one of the least diverse professions out there, right? We hover a little bit under 5% of the industry, just 5%, folks, right? And when you think about nationwide, we're about 14% of the population, right? So that means we're nearly a third of where we are in the industry. So there aren't we're not a lot at all. And just like Jay Wendell said, those numbers are dwindling even more so, right? And we look at new law classes that come in, and there are less Black students than there ever were before. I know that from my alma mater, there's less Black law students than there were when I was there, right? And part of the things that is important to me and a part of the mission of Justis Connection is to bring up that next generation. Because when Black lawyers are successful, right, and successful means that they are able to be proactive and reactive to the needs of the Black community. And when Black lawyers succeed, guess what we're going to do? We're going to hire other Black lawyers, right?
Exactly.
We're able to grow. We're able to expand our reach. And to this day, Jay, most folks don't know that there really is not a national Black law firm. I'm talking about, for our audience, the biggest law firms in the country are sort of known as like the AmLaw 200 or even 500, right? And they look at the largest law firms and those who have offices in all major cities and, quite frankly, around the world. And not one of them is owned by Black people. So we have a ways to go in this country.
We used to have Black law firms. Even when I was coming through, we had Black law firms. I don't know if they ever became nationals, but I know we used to have them. But now, it's just a lot of work that needs to be done. So.
It is a lot of work. And I strongly believe, right, and why I created Justis Connection, we are better together. We're only going to shift and make impact and break through barriers together, in collaboration and leveraging our relationships on behalf of one another. We're not going to do this as solo dolos out there, thinking that we're going to swim upstream, right, by ourselves. It's really through collaborative efforts and joining forces that I know that we can then make true impact in the legal community, in the legal field, as well as on behalf of our community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the comments, yes, Kavette, we need another it's funny that you mentioned Thurgood Marshall, right, Kavette, because I often use the example of Thurgood Marshall when speaking with folks. When Thurgood came out of law school, it was during a time period where Thurgood came out and Black people said, "We got you, Thurgood. You are a lawyer. We going to you," right? And Thurgood was like, "I'm here, Black people. What do you need?" And we've lost that connection for a lot, in large part, right? I mean, Jay Wendell, when you come out, there's a lot of work to do to build up a practice, right? It's not as simple as just, hey, I'm a lawyer and I'm out here, right? Because you got to do the work, and then you also have to do the connections.
But
And
let's say to the fact that we have a whole lot more Thurgood Marshals out here than you actually know or hear about. Black lawyers
yes,
have been in the last 5 to 10 years, where you see us involved in everything.
yes, Kane. Mm-hmm.
You say, well, where is the Ben Crump? Where is the where are these people? If they're not there, you're surprised, and especially when these police killings occur, if you don't see a black lawyer representing the victim, you're almost shocked now. It's almost a shock to see white lawyers do it, because white lawyers really weren't involved in civil rights until we started getting some of these victories that we're getting. And now you see white lawyers starting to creep back into civil rights, police misconduct cases, because prior to then, nobody wanted to go against the police. It was
That's right.
the black lawyers who were going against the police. Now they're calling me and say, well, I got this case. You want to work with me on it? Or how do you do this? And how do you do that? And, I'm a lawyer, so I'm going to share the information, because I think if you're working for black people, trying to get justice for black people, I really don't care what color you are, but we have a special place in society. And it's not just civil rights. It's all aspects of law. Whenever we can get into any field of law, we excel in it. We excel. And it's just opportunity that we lack. And if we get these opportunities, we're going to excel. And you will know who we are a whole lot faster than you will know who they are in any field of human endeavor, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. You are spot on, right? When we're in it to win it, right? We excel, and we go above and beyond. We go above and beyond. Yeah, it is. All right, let me see. Another. So I see a question, right? Or yeah. I'm gonna let Jay Wendell take this one, because the issues around the question is any advice on what judges to vote for in local election, and there's rarely any discussion on this. The issue around even judicial elections is a thing, if you will, right? And the way that we're voting on judges now, we're really looking at a sliver, right, of the potential pool, because our judges are mainly appointed in this state. It's a hybrid system, if you will. And so some judges are appointed, and then they come up for sort of a local election to be to stay in office. At that time, other people can sort of put their hat into the race, but it's not all the time. It's not. There's a whole different system, right, for judicial elections, and it is something that it does require us, like all elections, really to become attuned to pay attention, and to do our homework and our research, and to ask questions around sort of what has been the record of any particular judge, and like any other elected official, quite frankly. If they're not serving the needs of the community, then the community has the right through that election process to then make a different choice, right? Jay, I don't know if you wanted to touch on that.
I like to introduce the public to a little website that we use as lawyers to get intel on judges. It's called the Robing Room. The Robing Room. Like you put on a robe, the robingroom.com. If you really want to know what lawyers think about judges, that's where we comment anonymously about judges, and it applies to judges all over the country. So you just put in your state, put in your county, look up a judge's name. If they're acting judge, there's somebody's going to comment on them, and then you can make your decision, based upon that and other resources, because that's just one resource. That's just one resource, and people could have their own biases against a particular judge, but when it's time for them to come out and they want your vote, man, you talk to them about what's important to you. In the counties that I'm a stakeholder in, I will comment on my Facebook page about certain judges, how to vote, because most times people don't know how to vote for judges. They just vote based upon just down ballot alphabetically, and the judge whose last name begins with the A or closest to the A is one who's certainly to become a judge, and the ones whose last name end with a Z are probably not going to be likely to become a judge. And it doesn't matter what their qualifications are, because people don't educate themselves with judges, because people don't think about judges until they end up in the courtroom. But it's very important. Judges make big decisions about our lives. That's why it's important to, vote in every election, whether it's for the governor, because the governor appoints judges. If you don't like the philosophies and ideals of your governor, you need to be concerned about that, because he's going to be appointing state judges that may share his philosophies. With the president, we know how that works. The president appoints over 300 judges in their term, and I'm talking about federal judges. And it is incredibly important to have a say in your president, because if he's appointing these judges, he's going to appoint judges who feel the way they do. Imagine if Donald Trump got in for another term and got the opportunity to appoint another 300 judges. These judges on the federal level are appointed for life. They're Article 3 judges. They're appointed for life. So we're talking 25, 30, 40 years, 50 years, depending on how young they are, of a judge's philosophy that may not change over time. So, you really have to be mindful of judges. And in addition to that, now that we're talking about judges in the system, serve on jury duty. Okay. A lot of us try to figure out ways we can, skip jury duty. We all get upset when injustices occur, when people are acquitted of crimes that they've committed, or they're found guilty of crime that you feel as though they didn't commit. Well, if you didn't accept your responsibility to sit on the jury when you had the opportunity to, then it's not much complaining you can do. I can't tell you how many times African Americans find any excuse not to serve on jury duty, and white folks will bend over backwards to serve, because to them, some of them are very eager for some get back. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't you say that there's this sense when you talk about juries, there's a sense amongst folks that jury duty is like a punishment. Like it's someplace you don't want to be, that you'll be trapped, right, for weeks on end. And wouldn't you say that that's not true, right? Like most trials, most cases are not weeks on end. They're not months where you're locked into a hotel and kept. That happens on television, right, and on the movies and the big cases that you see on TV. But for the most part, when you serve on jury duty, you're not making that type of commitment. And instead, like you said, you have to think about how you get to be in that moment, watch guard of your own community. Right. If we don't want to see all of our Black men go to jail, as Kavette mentioned in her comment, right, that's our opportunity to sit and listen and hear and be able to offer a different perspective, right? You have that right as a jury member to be able to bring that to the table and make a choice based on what you're bringing to the table in light of also what you're hearing in that case.
And they need your perspective. If it's a jury full of white folks who don't know what it's like to be terrorized by police, because that's just not the environment from which they've come, they need your perspective to enlighten them as to what the concerns are of an individual, why an individual may run, for instance. Not necessarily because he's guilty, because he's afraid of being beaten or killed by police. You just have to have these perspectives in that room. So it's just incredibly important. And I know I kind of digress from the original conversation, but I always have to, play up, serving on juries, because the only way we're going to get something done. I mean, once you get a jury verdict in your favor, they're pretty difficult to overturn. So, serve on jury duty and part of this system. This is not a spectator system. You have to be.
And there's so many places we can participate, right? You talk about being on a jury. We've talked about voting, whether even working, right, in the system in some form or fashion. So many of us are in tune and connected to the legal system that we take it for granted sometimes. But we also have to do our part as it comes up, right? We have to do our part. It's funny when you said about, I'm sorry?
I see a question. They say, how much is a murder trial? The time or the cost? But go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted.
No, but while Donnie clarifies on how much is a murder trial, It reminded me when you talked about like bringing your perspective. So my grandmother is a big fan of what's that Steve Harvey show? Just jumped right out of my head. Family Feud, right? So if y'all have ever watched Family Feud, they come on back to back to back to back. You got Steve Harvey, and you got, usually it's interesting, they got one black family and one white family, right? And so the question was, what does a police officer use for protection? And the black family was going, and I said, ooh, they answers so black. Their answers were too black because, good and well, them 100 people that they survey are not majority black people. You got to think like, what are white people thinking in that moment? I always think that, right? So the black families offers brass knuckles. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They said brass knuckles, right? They said mace. They said billy club. They said machine gun. They said, regular gun. And the white family, because, first the black family exhausted everything they could possibly think of. The white family was like a vest. Right? They were thinking about like, how does the officer protect himself? The black perspective was that protection was more of aggression, right? And so that perspective is also just as valuable, not just on Family Feud, where it's all fun and games, but where the games end is in the courtroom, right? When a life is at stake, and that perspective is even so much more important. Because if we can see the difference and laugh about it on Family Feud, it becomes frightening, right? How different our perspectives are, and then the impact that it has on real Black lives, right? The question around the murder trial was around cost. There was clarification, was how much does the murder?
About 20,000. 20,000 and up, 15, 20,000. Depends on what kind of homicide it is. Second degree is vehicular manslaughter. I would do a vehicular manslaughter probably for 15,000, but for murder it's 20, somewhere in there. Average. And that's industry custom.
Okay. And Cavett made a great point. Being a jury member is an opportunity to be a legal decision maker, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oftentimes we think of like judges having sole authority, right? This one person who gets to decide everything. And we forget that the jury, right? Each person gets to have their own choice in that matter. Each one gets to make a decision that then has weight, right? Has value, and must be heard. Because you don't just take one jury member's voice and then that is everything. Each one must be heard and tallied accordingly. So that's a great point, Cavett. Thanks for chiming in on that one.
And well stated.
Yeah. So we've touched on a little bit of everything. We touched on juries. Donnie done thrown in just a murder cause, how much that is, just to FYI. We've talked about the future. What'd you say?
Who is he about to kill? You call me.
Call first. Call your lawyer first before taking any action, right? No matter what it is, murder or otherwise, call your lawyer first. Get their feedback.
Talk you off the ledge, right?
That's right. Give you that good sound counsel advice. We've gotten a little bit of behind the scenes with the robing room, checking that out and learning about judges and what lawyers really think about them. Quite frankly, people forget that most courtrooms, you can go on in and sit in the back and listen.
Yeah, you can watch. Yeah,
right?
You can be a courtroom.
You can partake. You don't have to.
Yeah, I used to do it as a young lawyer.
I did too, right? To listen and learn and observe. And as someone who's not a lawyer, whose case isn't before the judge, who isn't connected to anybody in the room, when you sit back and you listen, you might be quite shocked at what occurs, right? One, you're going to learn something, most likely. You're going to learn something. But you'll also see all of these different players in the room, right? And it's quite different than just going into traffic court. Traffic court is its own beast as well. And many people sometimes have been a part of that. I know I have, unfortunately, more times than I wish, But when you go into other types of courtrooms and hear different types of cases and situations, you're going to learn something. You're going to might be shocked at what you're observing. Not everybody sounds like the way they do on television, right? Oftentimes folks are reading, they're stumbling through their words, they're whispering, there's talking going on, there's recess, there's all types of activity going on. And there's so much for us to be a part of in that process, because the legal system is something that we should all be connected to. So one of the questions that came up, probably our last question, and it says, do lawyers make better politicians? Well, that's an interesting question. I will say, from the perspective of elected officials who are in the legislature, I think that it is of great value to have legislators who are lawyers, because, right, those legislators are they're drafting, they are writing the next generation of laws, right? They're tweaking old laws, they're making new laws, they're repealing, they're getting rid of old laws. And so having someone who understands the law, who's educated and taught how to analyze and read and interpret the law can be helpful in that practice, right? Because oftentimes, quite frankly, the majority of our legislators are not lawyers, right? They're not lawyers. I don't think everybody needs to be, right? Obama was a constitutional professor, right? But I do think that it is of value to have some folks in the room who are, especially those who serve on committees like the Judiciary Committee, right? To have people who really know the law in that room, writing it, and being able to, quite frankly, help their other legislator colleagues understand what's really before them. What are your thoughts, Jay?
Yeah, I don't think they necessarily make better politicians. However, having a law degree certainly gives them an advantage in certain situations, but it depends on what type of law you practice. You might be a transactional lawyer, but I guess any situation in the General Assembly. I was just thinking that, I think trial lawyers are very important to, the General Assembly. And I think right now we may have one. I know Jill Carter is there. Because we bring a perspective, we see the law in motion. It's not some idealistic notion.
Theory, right?
Yeah,
It's practice. We know the practice of the law.
Deal. So when new laws come out, we kind of instantly know how it's going to pan out. We know who's going to be affected, who's going to be disaffected, who's going to be harmed, who's going to benefit. We know that from the very beginning.
But we have the experience to be able to see how it has played out in other areas, and quite potentially how one law can mean one thing, where as far as people, their meaning behind it and what their intentions are, but a lawyer can say, hey, based on X, Y, and Z experience, I know how this might actually play out in the real world.
It's not going to play out very well, and it's important to have that understanding, especially when you go into argue these bills and support them or disfavor them. You have your own anecdotes as to why you feel the way you do. And I think that carries a lot of weight. When I go down to Annapolis to testify on certain bills, I'm not representing some large organization. I'm representing myself. And I can come up with anecdote after anecdote as to why a certain law is good for Marylanders, or why it is bad for Marylanders, why it's good for African Americans, why it is bad for African Americans. You think that laws are interpreted fairly, but judges are human, and they come in with the same baggage that you saw those who invaded the Capitol, okay? And they come in with some of the same baggage that you saw from those who fight for people who've been harmed by way of injustice. The bottom line is they're human. They come in with whatever they come in with, and they will take a law that's on its face, is fair, and makes great sense, and they'll turn it upside down in its application. And so it's important that you have these different perspectives and be able to understand how certain laws can help and harm people.
Yeah. The last question that came up was, is Trump going to jail? News says, is Trump going to jail? That is the question on everybody's mind. Ain't it so? Ain't it so? Ain't it so? Everybody want to know, is this fool going to jail? We'll table that. We have something came in from Mr. Stanley. I need a lawyer for an old child support case. I could not get son's birth certificate, and the boy's mother never let me get to know him, just took my money, or it sounds like the state of Maryland did. And so that once the state of Maryland is involved, right, in a child support case, that usually entails somebody who is maybe receiving social services, and then that child support becomes owed, quote unquote, to the state of Maryland. Maryland is one of few states that don't necessarily pass through some of that money to the mother. They collect it all, right? And unfortunately, right, that has the biggest impact on folks who oftentimes need it the most. So a lawyer can help you with an old child support case, right? It depends on one of the things that, looking at the age of the child, right? Two, being able to look at the original child support order, right? And taking a look at that. Was it ordered by the court that you should pay? How much did the court order you should pay? When was that? Looking at how much has been collected, how much is still owed. I will tell you, many times the system itself calculates incorrectly, right? Over the years, what somebody owes. Back when I was practicing law, I handled child support cases in Baltimore City, and there were countless times where I had one person where he was overcharged over $40,000 because the system was accumulating beyond when the children had reached 18, right? And so it's always good to start before you even connect with a lawyer. But a lawyer can help you with an old child support case, but to do some homework ahead of time, right? And some things you can do is by going to Maryland Court Search. Maryland is one of the is a state that allows you to go online, plug in your name, right, where the jurisdiction or the county that you live in, and be able to pop up any case that's related, right? So you can go online and look up what's the original child support case, right? How much, and then get that information, because you got to start at the beginning. Oftentimes folks will say they're doing it by memory, right? Or they're doing it by what somebody told them. And there's nothing like what's on the paper to start off to figure out what's going on, right? So if you look at, maybe we can put that in the chat, courts.state.md.us, and you can go to case search. It's right there on that front homepage. That's courts.state.md.us, and it allows you to look up by name. Well, good, you got some money back. And allows you to look up your own. There you go. It allows you to look up your own case, right? And then you can see how much you were supposed to be paying and start making those calculations. You can call the child support office in particular, depending on what county or if you're in the city, and be able to get a readout on all the payments that they've collected, and being able to make sure that it matches with, maybe you've kept receipts, maybe you've got pay stubs that show that you had garnishments. All of that stuff is important, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that the system isn't taking more money than it's supposed to, especially in your situation where it seems like you're trying to figure out how to close an old child support case, right? That is still taking money from you. But if you go to, Donnie put in the, there's J. Wendell Gordon. I'm sure he can assist. And we've also got justisconnection.com. We can send you a number of Black lawyer referrals, depending on the jurisdiction where you live at, how much you're comfortable paying, and whatever the subject matter is, and be able to connect you with a couple of Black lawyers that you get to then choose, right? You get to do an interview, if you will, because it's really important if you're going to be connecting with a lawyer that you feel comfortable with that person. You'll be sharing information, and you expect them to work hard on your behalf. And so it's important for you to feel comfortable with whatever lawyer you decide to hire or connect with.
I guess there's a question asked, is the system running smoothly in this age of virtual hearings? And not really. There's a lot of improvement, but the lawyers are very patient. You know, I saw there was a cat video with a lawyer not too long ago, where lawyers are just trying to get accustomed to this new technology, and so you do have mishaps, but we're in it for the long haul. So it's just the practice of law is changing, and it's becoming more virtual. You're having a lot more remote cases. However, I'm not going to concede to giving up jury trials or doing trials virtually. That's not going to be anything that I agree to do. You have the option in some cases to have your cases tried virtually, but I'm never going to do that. I believe that the human experience is very important to the judicial system, and so far the courts agree, and so they're not mandating that trials be held virtually. But however, jury selection is now being held virtually. It's my understanding that we're going to hold a virtual jury selection in July, even though the trial is going to be in person. But when you have all those people pooled into the courtroom, I don't know if we'll see that like we used to back in the day. They may be doing that virtually for a while, but you still will put 12 people in the box in a criminal case, 6 people in the box in a civil case, you know, give and take the alternate jurors. And virtual hearings are here to stay. However, contested hearings that require testimony and sworn testimony, that is, I hope it doesn't go that way, and I'm fighting against it.
Okay, thanks for that question. A lot of things have changed, right? I don't think that just like everything else, the legal system and the court system will probably never be exactly how it was before. And quite frankly, the legal system has been so slow to adopt technology in so many aspects. And so lawyers, judges, and everybody a part of the legal system has been thrust into this technological world, as Jay mentioned. And so things are shifting, and lawyers are trying to keep up. Judges are having to get adjusted. And I think it could be beneficial for the public. There might be some benefits. There'll be some things that people will probably push back on, right? Because there is something about being in person and being able to connect with people, especially when you're dealing with somebody's liberty. And then there are some things that probably could more easily be handled virtually instead of having to go and sit in traffic court. That's me, in traffic court. Right?
They can do scheduling virtually. But
Right.
when you have to judge someone's demeanor, their credibility, you want to see them. I want to see your hands shaking. I want to see, you blink. I want to see, if you have nervous tics, if you shaking your thighs. I forget what you call it when you do your thighs back and forth.
Shaking your thighs.
When they get nervous. Just
people do that in real life. Quiver.
Yeah, you look at everything.
You mean quiver?
I look at people's hands. If I hand them a piece of paper and they take it from me and the hand is, I'm looking at everything. In fact,
He's looking at your thighs. He's looking at your thighs, apparently.
Well, you can see people's legs, and you want to see every single thing. It's nothing.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's everything is fair game when you're in that courtroom.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, this has been a good, robust conversation. We touched on a little bit of everything. So I thank everybody who tuned in. Jay, thanks for joining us and being a part of this inaugural conversation. Thank you to Mr. Stanley for chiming in, and Kavette and others for being a part. Don't lie to your lawyer. Very true. Very true. Got to tell the truth to your lawyer.
I tell my clients all the time, you can lie to your mother, but do not lie to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
I'm a,
they're paying you. They better tell you everything. They better tell you everything. They're paying you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not cheap. Y'all heard that. It ain't cheap, right? But good. What was it? What was the slogan again that you like to use, Jay?
Doesn't cost, it pays.
There you go. There you go. You're most welcome. We're going to leave it on that note, and thank everyone for tuning in tonight. And we hope that you join us in the future as we bring on more lawyers and share legal resources and tips and answer questions, and make sure that you have the legal information that you need, that we can serve as your link to a lawyer. So I hope everyone has a good Thursday evening and a weekend coming up. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jay.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
You too.